right, on to the sixth Hermetic principle, which is cause and effect. And a run through from 1 through 6 real quick again, each time, just to recap on the flow of things here. You can go back into the feed and see in order each of the 7 principles kind of singled out with focus on each of them leading up to now. The all is mind, the universe is mental is the first principle. I covered that in the others. Everything happens in consciousness. There's no reality outside of conscious experience, is the way that works out. When you try to propose that there is, you then face the hard problem of consciousness, which is not being able to explain it. And it's the only one thing that we can be certain of. It's the only real absolute given that doesn't require any logic or reason. You just experience the truth of what is, which is conscious experience. So for a lot of various reasons, this is, including direct experience ahead of reason, this is why this is the first principle. The second principle is correspondence, as above, so below. Mind above is going to reap minds below. And with all of that, there's going to be a lot of correspondence, and that's going to start up a reality as complex as it looks, being very simple at the core. Repeating processes. And when you can see the repeating processes on the plane that you're observing, like right now we're observing it in the physical plane, you can then understand that these repeating processes reverberate through all of the planes, non-physical planes, whatever other planes of existence exist. And that's why it's here, because it's repeated its way into our observational range, into our bandwidth of experiential observation. We get that with the second principle. The third principle is of vibration. I've got subatomic particles here, and the red is core subjectivity. That subjectivity starts at the first principle. The first principle is an experiential living mind that then has correspondence, vibration contained within itself. This red is the subjectivity, the consciousness, the pure awareness aspect that flows in an unbroken way through the 7 principles. When you get here, I've got this as subatomic particles, and they're fields and atomic fields. They're toroidal based. And this all happens within the vibratory nature of things. The vibration is driving all the torus fields, and the torus fields are driving the appearance of subatomic particles and atomic fields, subatomic fields, all within the unified field of non-local mind. As we get to the fourth principle, we'll have the principle of polarity. So without, accompanying all of this appearance of particles and sub and atomic field level particles, there's polarity. You've got the protons and the neutrons, and you've got the pluses, the electrons, minuses, the protons, pluses, and the neutrons, equal, neutral symbol. You have to think of it in terms of 3. It is never just dual. People overlook the third aspect, which is the non-dual aspect, in forming, which gets fragmented into what seems dual, plus and minus. Polarity introduces all of that. So within this repeating process reality, where there's particle appearances, they come as polarized, and mind is polarized at the personal mind level. The corresponding personal mind to the impersonal mind is set up left and right hemisphere. There's this and that. You get into the 5th principle of rhythm. When you delineate a couple of mental poles, perceptual and mental poles, then there's the rhythm between those delineated poles. 5th principle of rhythm. We're now on to the 6th principle of cause and effect. Now I've drawn this as the pendulum swinging between delineated poles. 6th principle is going to be cause and effect. And I have this color coded because I've got the green as the effects and the red as the cause. The cause of anything. So I'm going to dive right into cause and effect because it's kind of contentious. In science, well, if you get back far enough, you get lost in all the causes and effects. This is the general thinking in physicalism. Well, there's more than just that. Yeah, that's all true, but that happens in the first principle, in primary consciousness itself. Causing the appearance of causing and affecting happens. So this would be the unmoved mover. I'm going to go ahead and unpack that again. I've touched on it earlier, but the unmoved mover, this is the witness of the appearance of movement, which is all of this. This is witnessing this. Cause and effect is something that is witnessed by this, the ultimate witness. So it's true, just as saying that these things are perceptual, but they're true in terms of perception. They're not. Nothing is 100% one way or the other. It's always this and that. We talked about, and with the principle of rhythm comes the insight that all dichotomies are false dichotomies. They're the neutral symbol, fragmented into what looks like left and right, plus and minus, male, female, masculine, feminine, all of this business. Interlock triangle. The interlock triangle brings back the unity here. The middle path of the pendulum. The middle way. The central way between two poles. So causing and affecting comes in behind all of that. And you've got to figure, well, what's the cause? Let's just ask, let's just write it out. Like, what is the cause? And I'm color coding this just for sake of keeping track. What is the cause of the effect of perceptual reality? But I'm going to color coordinate this here as we're talking along to kind of drive home the point. The green and the red. So the red is fundamental reality, core subjectivity, all mind, omni-mind, non-local mind, working its way through this investigation, this introspection. See what I've done here? Cause and effect. Well, the unmoved mover is the ultimate witness, is the ultimate cause of any effect that appears to perceptual reality, to perception itself. If anything appears to be caused by something, this is going to reduce to the first principle. The principle of all mind, or spirit. When people talk about spirit, capital S, spirit, that's what they mean. It's spirited too, when you think about it. It's what gives anything movement. This is going to launch into something else. I'm going to let this stuff just unfold as I talk. Matter as appearance. Spirit, matter. There's a saying. It's an Eastern saying. People who penetrate much deeper than a lot of the surface level understandings. Spirit, matter, no separation. This is gnosis. This is truth. This is insight. This is the fruits of introspection and inward path. So Matter is an appearance in spirit. Spirit, matter, no separation. The people who are separating these two, even if they're professing non-dual insight, in reality they're stuck in a dualistic mindset if they think that these are not one holistic reality engaged in self-interaction with itself through perception. It's the fact that it's all perception is what gets us to the non-dual aspect. It's why it's not two distinct things. It's not one thing does not have standalone existence apart from the other and the whole. In other words, spirit, matter, no separation. The cause, spirit, of the effect, the world of experience, the so-called objective universe that appears to be separate and void with distance, is a holistic reality at the very bottom. It is not what it appears. The cause of this effect, this Maya, samsara, and Babylon, this illusion-based kind of interface reality, the way people describe it today. It's not like a separate computer simulation. It's a simulation that's run in holistic mind, in holistic consciousness, a self simulated, because there's nothing other than the capital S self, which is spirit, to do anything, to simulate anything, and for anything to be contained within. This is the containment of all that is contained. And within that, we are going to have a very clear view of the Hermetic principle of cause and effect. Yes, it's perceptual. Aside from perception, no, there isn't causes and effects. There isn't two things. If you get the idea of two things, for cause, we had to get a polarity, and it's perceptual, for there to be the existence of two things within a holistic mind, and holistic mental reality. And then the flow, the rhythm between delineated poles that were just perceptual the whole time, not fundamentally true, just perceptually true, which is a partial truth of the half-truths. All truth is this. Everything else is half-true. Everything else is half-true. All truths are but half-truths aside from the first principle, contained within the first principle. I'm just trying to make these, tidbits of knowledge understood in this day and age. So, I've been going shorter on some of these other principles because you can take off and figure all kinds of stuff out to do with these things on your own, which is what's meant to happen through the Kabbalion previous efforts to get this kind of knowledge out. So I'm sticking with the guidelines, the way in which this stuff is transmitted. It's enough to orient to what it is, but it's not in any way over divulging it. This stuff isn't meant to be spoon-fed. People, they have to work for it a little bit it's not just even knowledge preservation. It's for the sake of the individual. The individual has to kind of work for it to get there. If they don't have to work for it, they're not getting it. So it's within the individual's best interest to have to work for it a little bit when it comes to things like mental alchemy and chemical alchemy. There's people that there is real chemical alchemy. People, it's not like the mental is what it is and the chemical is a farce. There's both. And I know of people into both, and there's people that have spent close to 20 years circling around and around before having this eureka and actually figuring something out from doing and observing until the doing and observing amounted to something, and something was realized and figured out. And then they've, sought out people who they think can understand. In that case, it would have been me, for a sort of peer review. Because, I mean, what kind of peers are there in the world for this sort of thing? There's not a lot. And you're not going to get some will be academic, some will not be. So there is no real, peer review aside from just trying to get with people who understand this kind of thing. And people have come to me. So like I said, I'm not going to over divulge anything. I'm sitting on some things that will be huge if they pan out. But it's up to those people to pan them out, not me. You know what I mean? It's just, and of the things that I've figured out on my own, I'm saying a lot of them, but I'm never saying all of it. It's unbecoming to put out every single thing. Putting it out in steps that seem appropriate. They seem appropriate. This is all, the intention here is not to just, wreck everything. There's a lot of partial truths that need to be labeled partial truths. That's my take right now. And they're claiming to be all truth. They're not. They're only partial truth. So this is for sake of getting the truth straight as well as we can in this day and age. Cross-referencing between technology and science and philosophy and traditional Hermetic, mystical knowledge, as well as Taoist and certain Hindu and Buddhist Vedic knowledge of the same variety. I'll go ahead and probably close this section down. Sixth principle. That's as much as I think I care to say about it. The big takeaway is that the cause of anything is the first principle of all mind, and the effects are what we see in the so-called objective reality. And the big takeaway from this, from mental alchemy, is that somebody can become talented and can do well for themselves if they can learn to use these 7 principles complementary, like in conjunction with one another, as well as posing one against the other for certain reasons. And that much has been said. That much is in public. That was part of the original Kabbalion. So I'm gonna restate that and just say that again. There are ways that this can be used. You start to at some point realize that our inner subjective experiences are very regularly mirrored and repeated into what seems like the physical world. And this comes off as precognition, a lot of psi issues, very regular increased synchronicity. People like myself experience, 24/7 synchronicity, all day, all night, all the time. You can literally think of something and then just see something random appear that corresponds to what you had just been thinking, and not digital, not on the phones, not for algorithms. It can be on the phones, and then you have to wonder about algorithms and things tying in. But even then, there's things that seem to go beyond the algorithms. But I mean road signs, license plates, license plate numbers, numerals that are out there like on a semi truck that you happen to be passing, and there's a meaningful coincidence between something there and something that you just thought subjectively and maybe didn't even say out loud. When you get that deep into synchronicity, it becomes obvious that through all of this mental reality of self-interaction, and vibration and polarity and rhythm and cause and effect, all together working in concert, it truly does reflect inner experiences at time you can pick up on that. But the problem is that people are it's around all the time, and people aren't thinking, or if they start to see it, they might think, nah, that couldn't be the case. I must be mistaken. Well, that's what happens. But when it gets really extreme and it's 24/7 all the time everywhere, and it's way beyond doubt and way beyond denial, you have to look at things deeper. You have to introspect more. about things like natural occurring synchronicity. It's so consistent that in this fusion of Jung Pauli, they were actually Pauli was actually there was an idea of actually including naturally occurring synchronicity into their like cosmological outlook and physical outlook, because it's that consistent. It's so consistent that it could actually be, and going forward, I think there is going to be a need to include natural occurring synchronicity into things like into the models, into whatever we're doing for physics and cosmology. Someday we're going to have to figure natural synchronicity in there, and we're going to have to consider things like the 7 Hermetic Principles, and we're going to have to consider things like metaphysical law in our cosmology and in our physics of the future. We are on the heels of that, and that's why I'm talking about it. I just, it's going to go out onto the internet. There's not a lot of viewers right now, but in time, and as this stuff is there and available, I do believe that the eyes that are meant to see this stuff, who have minds that can understand what's being said here, will be able to see it, benefit, and possibly move forward, and hopefully use some of these as a launching point into greater levels of technology that will serve humanity in the long run. We have to understand that all is mind to get into the deeper technology. The technology of nature requires that we understand that nature is mind. It requires that. And there may be the odd academic out there that comes across this obscure Hermetic talk and has some eureka and says, wait a minute, this actually solves a problem. This solves something. I'm hoping that maybe by just putting this stuff out there, somebody somewhere can take the baton and run with it, because there's something here to be understood.